Good morning, students. In this video, we'll study about the incorporation of a company. Okay. Now, what do you mean by incorporation? Incorporation is basically the registration of the company. Okay. You know that company is an artificial legal entity. So, it must be registered as a body corporate with the registrar of the company. Means it has to get its registration from the registrar of the company. Now, a company is said to be incorporated when it finally receives the certificate of incorporation. When the company receives the certificate of incorporation, then finally the company is registered. Is it clear? So, if the company is not registered, it won't be called as a corporate body. Now, incorporation involves three major steps. The first one is preparation and filing of necessary documents. Whatever necessary documents they have to file, like address, you can say identity and all. So, they have to prepare and file necessary documents. Second step is payment of fees. Whatever fee is being charged for the registration, they have to pay that. The third stage is obtaining the certificate of incorporation. First, what they have to do? They have to prepare and file the necessary documents. Secondly, what they have to do? They have to make the payment of the fees. And thirdly, they will finally attain the certificate of incorporation. Now, let's begin step by step. The first one is approval of name. Now, before the registration of the company, means before you start up with the procedure of the registration of the company, it is important for the company to get its name approved by the registrar of the company. If suppose I am thinking to keep my company's name as Varsha Private Limited, but before keeping that name, I have to get it registered or I have to get it approved from the registrar of the company. So, for this purpose, you have to write an application writing the name of the company to the registrar. And finally, if registrar thinks that or finds that there is no discrepancy in these things, then he will approve the name. Now, after the name being approved, the next step is filing the documents. Now, an application for registration of the company is made to the registrar of the company, as we have already studied that we have to make the application to the registrar of the company. Now, along with the application, you have to submit necessary documents. And the necessary documents are, number one, Memorandum of Association. Memorandum of Association should be signed and stamped, and it must be signed by at least 7% of the company if you are going to start up a public company. And if you want to start up a private company, then it should be signed by at least 2%. We are talking about Memorandum of Association. Next is Article of Association. Article of Association must be duly signed by the signatories of the memorandum and properly stamped. Means the people, those who have signed the Memorandum of Association, must sign Article of Association as well. A private company must file its own Article of Association, but a public company may not prepare and file its own Article of Association. So, for a private company, it is mandatory to file or get the Article of Association being stamped, but for a public limited company, it is not mandatory. If they are not filing Article of Association, then they will follow the laws or rules applicable to the Table A of Companies Act. Okay. Next is a declaration in the prescribed form by an advocate, a chartered accountant, cost accountant, or a company secretary in practice who is engaged in the formation of the company, and also the directors, managers, or the secretary of the company as well. Is it clear? They also have to sign that. Next is an affidavit from each of the subscriber to the memorandum and from persons named as the first director. Means whosoever is signing the memorandum must sign this also, as well as the name of, you can say, name appointed for the first director, they should also sign. Now, in the article, he is not convicted of any offence. The person who is signing this article must not be offensive or must not be found guilty of any fraud or breach of his duty. Next thing is the address for the correspondence must be mentioned. Sixth, the particulars of name, including the surname, family name, residential address, nationality, and other things are to be mentioned. After that, the particulars of the person mentioned in the articles as the first director of the company, जिन्होंने first director के लिए appoint किया गया था जिन्हें, उनका नाम, उनका surname, उनके family names, उनका identity proof, etc. Number 8 is the particulars of interest of the person mentioned in the articles as the first director of the company in the form of bodies, corporates along with their consent to act as a director. Means they are given the permission to act as a director. They should also sign. So, after attaching these documents, the next step is the payment of fees. The registrar of the company will check each and every minute details of the documents. If he is satisfied with the documents, then what he will do, he will enter the name of the company in his register. Okay, and when he enters the name, like before entering the name only, the amount of registration fees should be paid to the registrar with the documents. Okay, like fee, stamp duty and registration fees as well. And it differs from company to company as the authorized capital of the company differs from one to another. Next is registration. Once the registrar is satisfied with all the necessary documents or being attached, he will enter the name of the company in his register. After registration, the company will be given the certificate of incorporation. Like the registrar will issue the certificate to the company, and this certificate will be called as the certificate of incorporation. It will have a proper date on it and it will be signed by the registrar. Now the company becomes a distinct legal entity with perpetual succession and a common seal from the date mentioned in the certificate. From that day onwards, the company can start its operation. Is it clear? So that's all for today. In our next class, we will study further. Thank you. Bye-bye.